Welcome, everybody, to the Bob Seger version of Under the Dome. I saw the title here. Here I am on the road again. There I go, up on the stage. Turn the page. I wasn't going to sing the whole song to you. I love that
Here
song, by
I
the way.
go
That is an
on the
awesome
road
song.
again. And it is the Bob Seger version, not the Metallica version. I love Metallica, don't get me wrong. Do
Hey,
not
uh,
mess with the classic.
well, let me tell you this. You're going to probably laugh at me, but I went and saw Garth Brooks in concert. Oh, God, a good 25 years ago. I want to say it was probably, what, 93, 92. Might have even been earlier than that. Might have been 89. I saw Garth Brooks in concert, and he put on a hell of a show. And this was at a time where country artists didn't do these kind of things, setting the stage on fire, coming up out of a riser, explosions, and things like that. Well, at one point, he started singing songs that really influenced him growing up, and he
Mm-hmm.
sang "Turn the Page," and it was awesome because he kind of just they had, like I said, they had risers on stage. He just kind of sat down and just kind of leaned back and sang the song with just an acoustic guitar kind of playing in the background. And then somebody came with a saxophone, and you hear that familiar riff. And yeah, it was really really cool. So I
Now,
went to.
in maybe 80, late 80s, maybe even early 90s, I bought this tribute album that I can't repeat over the air the actual name of it.
Uh
But one
huh.
of the reason that I bought it was one of the songs on there. It was a tribute to Kiss. All these artists that were influenced by Kiss, and one of the songs on there was "Hard Luck Woman."
I have this album. I
Yeah,
know exactly the album
and
you have. Yep.
I was in the store and they were playing it over the loudspeakers, and I heard it, and I thought it was Kiss, and they told me no,
Yeah.
that's Garth Brooks.
Yep.
So I
Yeah.
spent $20. Now this, like I say, this is late 80s, early 90s.
Uh-huh.
A $20 on a cassette. Uh, and for
Yeah.
our millennial audience, you can Google what a cassette is. Um, but anyway, uh,
Yep.
we always wind up in music. Music is the universal
Uh,
language, I guess. We want to
because if
thank
I'm not,
everyone for joining us tonight.
yeah.
Thank Fan First Productions for being our sponsor. Invite you guys to subscribe to us on YouTube and iTunes on our channels, and welcome you all to the 18.01 edition, uh, which means we have turned a new calendar year for the National Football League, which means that the Super Bowl has been played and the world champion has been crowned, and ding dong, the witch is dead. The
I
evil,
shared a,
the evil
I
Emperor
shared a post.
Palpatine is gone.
Yep, the evil empire, the Death Star has been destroyed. I was very impressed with that whole game because I honestly did not expect a game that entertaining to get played. I really thought it was going to be a lot more of, the a, a low scoring first half with a lot of mistakes, and I expected them to kind of get their feet, under them by the second quarter and start doing some things, getting some drives going. But I really did not expect an arena ball type shootout with literal or no defense going on. And it was an enjoyable game. I mean, I
It
really
really
didn't.
was.
I'm not a fan of either team. Um, so I really could care. I did not care who won the game. I didn't want Brady to get his sixth Super Bowl ring. I didn't, the Eagle fan base. I have friends that are Eagle fans, so they're not included in this. The Eagle fan base in general is pretty obnoxious, and they're acting pretty much how I expected after they won the game.
Uh,
Um,
yeah,
you know,
I,
flipping
I I have
cars,
a
burning down the cities.
I have a really close friend. we worked together at PFS, and she now works for uh, Sirius XM. She's a associate producer for one of the college shows. I had approached her about being a guest on tonight. She's covered the Eagles. She's also a staff writer for Fanside. We're going to try to get her on another time.
Mm-hmm.
But she has been a diehard Eagles supporter for the longest time, and I asked her, was it worth the wait? And she said it was. So congratulations, Regina. You woke up Monday morning as a world champion. And I'm kind of upset because that makes the NFC East the first division that all four teams have Lombardis.
Yeah, but two of them got their Lombardis in the previous century. They haven't done anything since in over 30 years. I mean, the last one for the Cowboys was 95. The last one for the Redskins was 91. So Buffalo has gone to the playoffs more recently than the Redskins have been in the Super Bowl, and we're pushing the Cincinnati Bengals won a playoff game more recently than than the Washington Redskins won a Super Bowl. So that's a totally different era. Most people alive on the internet have never seen the Washington Redskins host the Lombardi Trophy.
Well, that's in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Rigo's Rangers, Doug Williams, who played his college ball just up the road here at Grambling. Jay Schrader, Joe Gibbs went three different times with three different quarters.
Yep. Yeah, he did. Mark Rippon was the last quarterback to win one. And, it's just we've had almost two generations since Rippon, since the Redskins won a Super Bowl. And we're almost approaching that line with the Cowboys, too. So I'm going to take that with a grain of salt, Well,
that for John Riggins, who at the time I played fullback, and for when that Super Bowl against Miami, that was probably 2 hips ago for John Riggins. So, but hey,
I mean, John Facenda narrated that Super Bowl highlight. That tells you how long ago that was.
Yeah, it does. Well, let me ask you this, and I've listened to all the back and forth about Brady choked and this and that and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Let me put this question to you. Would you, I don't know, would you classify this Super Bowl as two underachieving defenses or two overachieving offenses?
Two underachieving defenses. These were not very good defenses playing one another. And I disagree with the idea that Brady choked. I thought Brady probably played his best Super Bowl ever. That's all of them. Even the ones he lost to the Giants.
I agree.
He threw for over 500 yards. It's not his fault that the pressure finally got to him and they stripped the ball from him. I mean, who did not think with 2:21 left and a timeout that Tom Brady wasn't going to march down that field and score the game-winning touchdown with no time left for the Eagles, and the Eagles' fantastic game plan was going to go out the window.
Yeah. Now, there's two kudos that I have to give. And if you'll think back to a week ago, we were sitting here discussing what had to happen for the game to progress this way. For the Eagles to win, I had 3 things. They had to play really good defense against Tom Brady, which is arguable. They had to match the Patriots point for point, which basically they did. And Nick Foles had to play lights out. And honestly, I don't know how Nick Foles could have done anything. I mean, he threw touchdowns, he caught touchdown passes,
Yeah.
he handed the ball off to guys that ran it in. The only thing that he could have done any better would have been to kick the extra points that their kicker, who hasn't missed like in his career, happened to miss.
Yeah.
I give Nick Foles absolutely 100%. Well, let me take that back. I'll give Nick Foles 50%, and the other 50, I have to mention this local guy. I know it's not popular in ULLL land, but I got to
UL.
I got to give props to the hometown guy,
Yeah.
Doug Peterson.
Uh,
They to quote Sean Fox, the local radio sports talk journalist here, to quote him, he showed massive onions Sunday. Some of his play calls, and I actually it made me feel good because I heard Collinsworth alluding to it during the broadcast. Uh, he showed the most daring and gutsy play calling since Sean Payton. That fourth
Absolutely.
down,
It was
that
a.
fourth down and goal, he made
Mhm.
no bones about it the entire week. He told them, "I am not coaching not to lose. I am coaching to win this game." And he went out there on the biggest stage of them all. He never batted an eye, and he nailed it every time. Of course, his calls were nothing without the execution that the guys showed on the field. I can't say enough about how impressed I was with the fact how many times over the past, several seasons have we seen a team show up and they were just absolutely beaten getting off the bus because of the quote unquote Patriot mystique. And
Yeah.
these guys, they came out of the locker room and they weren't intimidated in the slightest. And they played their hearts out and it went their way. Now,
He
to
had
your
a.
point,
Yeah. I was gonna say he had a fantastic game plan. He spent those 2 weeks putting together this game plan, and they executed it perfectly. There was not everything that they tried. I know they rehearsed over and over and over again, and they got all the looks they wanted. Um, between I thought the two most impressive games that Foles played all season were the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl because he didn't make the mistakes. He got rid of the ball. Well, of course, they moved him around and got him to get rid of that ball quicker. That was always Foles' knock, was that he was the kind of guy that would hold on to the ball waiting for the play to develop and not throw that anticipatory throw that a quarterback like Tom Brady and a quarterback like Drew Brees throw. You know, Brees and Brady throw the ball before the receiver even makes the break. And what Foles traditionally has done is waited for the break and then throw it. And in this game, Peterson got him to speed up that delivery and was getting him to throw that ball early. And he was beating the coverages it's like he knew exactly what the Patriots are going to run. And this was the play to exploit that defense. And he did it to a perfection. Just an unbelievable coaching job.
I watched some of the pregame and I saw the Dan Patrick interview with Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it was just me, but it showed an incredible. In my mind, for Dan Patrick to ask Tom Brady, you know what the Eagles are going to try to do to you? And he said, yeah, I've got a really good idea. That showed arrogance to me because no one asked Nick Foles that.
No.
And the proof has been, we have the benefit now of going back and seeing the game and looking and contrasting these things in hindsight. Nick Foles was better prepared than Tom Brady. To me, now on
Yeah.
it's kind of a dichotomy because on one hand, Tom Brady had his best Super Bowl game ever, broke records, this, that, and the other. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And anyone that knows me knows how very distasteful those words were coming out of my mouth to say anything good about Tom Brady. But as much as I dislike the guy, I have always given him his due credit and respect that he's earned. But
Yeah.
to me, on the other side of the coin, there were many, many, many instances during that game where Tom Brady looked like a 40-year-old quarterback. He short armed throws, he mistimed throws, he threw bad passes. And let's not ever send Tom on a receiving route anymore because as
Well,
some of the memes that I've seen this week, it it's it's almost reality. There's one meme where he does like this and he watches it in, and it's the Lombardi Trophy that he misses.
yeah.
He catches that pass, it sets him up big time, and
Well,
Foles didn't drop his.
no, no, and Brady was slow coming out of college. I mean, you've seen the tape of him running. Um, Look, you know, Brady. Here's the thing with Tom Brady and the Patriots. They're always the kind of team that, and this is what I was saying last week. One of the things I'd said about the Eagles to win that game. Brady is always about keep it close, give us an opportunity late in the game to win it, and we will win it. We will make the drive. I thought their game plan involved a lot of Brandon Cooks because I think Brandon Cooks was a mismatch for the Eagles defense when he got knocked out by Malcolm Jenkins. Um, that really kind of messed up what they wanted to do as far as the passing game. But you throw for 500 over 500 yards, it wasn't that bad. It's just I think when it came time, especially late in the game, when it came time to push that ball downfield, they couldn't do it. If you had a Brandon Cooks, I think they would have been able to score late in the game, um, even with no time and a minute something left, needing 8 points. I think they would have gotten a good chance to score in that game, and that's what it really showed because Amendola is I can't even say his name. Danny
Amendola.
Amendola. Thank you. I could see the name, I could picture it, but I couldn't say it. Anyway, you saw his limitations as he's a guy that just gets open. He's not a guy who's going to run away from the team, run away from defenders, whereas Cooks was. So that's the kind of things that I think hurt Tom Brady when he needed to score and it didn't happen. But hey, again, the Eagles made the plays and they needed to make the plays. I thought the Patriots defense was really, really poor all game. I didn't think they made any plays on defense. They just did not look good at all. And part of that probably is the unexpected, benching of Malcolm Butler, who played, I think, one play on special teams, and that was it. And all the rumors surrounding why they did this, that I think that affected the Patriots a lot on defense. But they couldn't get a pass rush going either. They could not get to Foles. Again, well-designed rollout plays to keep Foles from getting in trouble, but still, they couldn't get to Foles. Now, this is one other thing I wanted to bring up. We were talking about could Foles have played any better? And, of course, we said no. He probably played his best game ever. A lot of people seem to think now that Foles will be a hot possible trade target. That
I disagree.
Foles' performance in both this game and the NFC Championship game it's kind of like the Al Davis approach with the players Al Davis used to always sign, whoever the Super Bowl MVP was for a couple of years in a row, whether it's Desmond Howard or Larry Brown. He goes and he signed those guys. Like that was the only game he watched all year. Um, my thing, I agree with you. I think it would be a mistake for anyone to try and go after Nick Foles because so much of his success, I think, in those two games comes from Frank Reich and Doug Peterson, not Nick Foles' innate talent. One of the websites.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It's not just that factor, but you're looking at 2 weeks to prepare for a game as well. But there's another factor that you have to look at. The generally accepted timetable for the recovery on a ACL is a year rehab.
Mm-hmm.
And that's if you don't push it and if you don't suffer any setbacks. Well, Wentz went down in, I believe, week 14.
Against the Rams. So, yeah.
And that was the week following when we played the Rams. So that was about week 14. You're looking at mid to late December before that 1 year mark. Now, sure, he could have an Adrian Peterson-like recovery, but that's going to be the exception rather than the rule. So
that was December 10th. So yeah, okay.
We're looking at early to mid December before he's your franchise guy. Are you going to rush him back just to settle all the off the field talk about a quarterback controversy? No, you're not going to do that, especially when your coach is a former quarterback. You're not going to do that. So the Eagles aren't going to ship him out anytime soon. On top of that, he's under contract for another year with the Eagles, if I'm not mistaken.
He is.
Yeah.
If I think if the Eagles would have lost, but Foles played extremely well, then you have an opportunity to possibly, again, because of Wentz's injuries, this probably defeats the whole purpose, but you have a possibility of moving him with a high value to get extra picks. But I just don't see it happening. I think it's clearly Wentz's team, but Wentz probably is going to be shut down the whole year. I really doubt he comes back. Say he's on the PUP list and comes back week 9 or 10, depending on how the Eagles are doing. I can't see them rushing him back either. No. I think they have to take it slow with Wentz because he clearly is the future. How would you rank the Super Bowl? If I don't know how many. What was your first Super Bowl? First off, that you remember watching, and then how would you rank it accordingly?
To be honest, I believe right off no one's ever asked me that. I believe the first one that I honestly remember watching was the first Cowboys-Steelers.
Super Bowl 10, yeah, that's mine too. Super Bowl 10,
and of course, I remember watching. Factoring into that is the age that I was more interested in the bands playing at halftime, spelling out words on the field than what was going on between the sidelines. But the first one that I watched that I can distinctly remember pieces and parts of the games and players and plays would probably be Pittsburgh and the Rams in
Super Bowl 14.
Yeah, Super Bowl. And then, of course, everyone since then. It's hard. You have to, for me, there's so much about the Super Bowl that you have to consider when you're deciding the best. Was it a fantastic defensive game? Was it a fantastic offensive game? Were both teams evenly matched? And then a lot of people's opinions are swayed by the final 2 minutes of a ball game. If it has a fantastic finish, oh, it's automatically the greatest. Well, no, there's
Yeah.
an entire other part of
Yeah.
the game that you're discounting. In terms of the whole ball of wax, yeah, I believe that this was a really, really good Super Bowl.
Hmm.
But fans that are just coming into the sport now are getting spoiled to what a Super Bowl can be, and they
Yeah.
don't remember or they don't have any knowledge of some of the games that you and I endured. The Cowboys
The,
Bills
the
number
entire
one.
the entire 1980s, starting
Yeah,
with probably 83 with the Raiders and the Redskins. That was the Marcus Allen run. I think it was 38-10 or 38-3, something like that. I mean, yeah, I'm the same way. Super Bowl 10 is probably the first one I watched. I can remember watching. I can remember exactly where I was watching it. I watched on a little black and white TV with the line coming through that would shift every so often because you had to watch via antenna. And it wasn't the greatest picture in the world, but I watched Super Bowl 10. The first Super Bowl I remember actually sitting watching the entire game was Super Bowl 13. And that was a good Super Bowl. That was probably one of my favorite Super Bowls for a long time. The second Dallas Pittsburgh one. And then, once the 80s started to roll through, then you were getting all the blowouts. And there were blowouts in the 70s too. But I mean, you were getting, you just go down the list. Redskins, Raiders. The Raiders blew out the Redskins that year. You had 49ers, Dolphins. The 49ers blew them out. The Bears and the Patriots, another blowout. That was a horrible Super Bowl to watch, unless you were a Bears fan. Then the 49ers, every Super Bowl they were in, except for the ones with the Bengals, those were all blowouts.
yeah.
The Cowboys, Bills ones were all blowouts. Super Bowl 20, Super Bowl 20 with 25. The Cowboys, Giants, and not Cowboys, Giants. I'm sorry, Giants, Bills was probably the first close Super Bowl that people really remember.
Yeah.
And then that kind of went away for a while, and then really it's been since. Is that thunder?
Yes.
Sounds like
Precipitation.
thunder. Yeah, it really has been the past 15 years, probably, that we really have gotten the good Super Bowls again. Beginning, unfortunately, with the Patriots coming in to starting to play in Super Bowls because they play things close. But you're seeing much more competitive games over and over and over again. You're not seeing these horrible games where you're more interested in the commercials. That's where that comes from. You're more interested in the commercials than you are the game itself. You're more interested in the halftime show. I mean, I turned off the halftime show, which I've been doing for the past 10 years, but I always do. I'll flip it over to NFL Network or I'll put on something else. None of these people are people I really care for. So I don't
Everybody
watch
has
them.
talked about boycotting the NFL. I'm going to start boycotting the halftime show. The last time that my genre was represented was when the Ravens played the Giants and they had Aerosmith.
I don't even remember that. I remember, well, of course, the Who played, for the Saints Super Bowl. But the rest of it, I really don't remember, because it's the halftime show has never been why I watch a game. It really isn't.
I remember during that Saints Super Bowl, the Who playing at half, and we were at my dad's watching, and I doubt my dad watches my show, so I'll tell this story. I came, as many of you know, I came from a musical background, so I know who the Who is. I know their music, and their bass player John Entwistle is probably one of the most incredibly, insanely talented bassists ever. So I'm sitting. Of course, he didn't play them because he'd already passed away. But that's how I became familiar with their music. So I'm sitting there, and I'm not really enthralled with their performance because, like I say, by this time, Moon's dead. Entwistle is dead. There's only two of the original members there. It's just kind of
And
not
and
the
Roger
same.
Daltrey just can't. Yeah, Roger Daltrey cannot sing the way he sang,
Oh,
20, 30 years ago. He can't do that scream. He can't do any of that
yeah.
stuff.
And I'm sitting there, and what's funny to me is I'm sitting there going in my mind, I'm going through all the game plans that I have for the Saints. How can we get back in this game? How can we catch it? How can we win? And out of the corner of my eye, I look over there at my dad, and he's never, as he normally does, he's never muted. He's sitting there, and he's letting the music play, and they're playing "Who Are You?" And
Mm-hmm.
eventually, I'm starting to giggle to myself at how long he's letting this play. And here in a minute, he leans up in that recliner and he said, "Did they ever say any damn thing but who are you in this song?"
Well, it's funny because my brother and I were talking about that. We kept making jokes the whole time that it was brought to you by the whole halftime show is brought to you by NCIS because it's all the theme songs. Think about
Sure
it.
is.
It's all
It
the theme
is.
songs,
Yeah.
or it's Dodge. The Dodge truck commercials play, or GMC plays Who songs. So yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
I have nothing against Justin Timberlake, and just for the record, I would like to put this out there. Justin Timberlake is absolutely one of the most insanely talented musicians of my generation, or well, excuse me, of this generation. This ain't my
Yeah,
generation.
right. And speaking of the
He,
Who,
yeah, yeah, mine goes back a bit.
yeah.
But he's very very talented. Not my cup of tea. The songs that I did recognize the last song that he played. The one that came from the Trolls movie because I have kids. Uh, but like I say, it's not my cup of tea. But I take nothing away from him and give him all the respect in the world. Uh, I I would love to see things widened out a little bit and a little bit more of my kind of music represented. I've said that for years, and I always get shot down. I always thought that they should have got Motley Crue to perform the halftime show before they hung it up. That didn't happen. AC/DC before any of the guys die. Of course, that's now out the water because Malcolm's gone. Uh,
Yeah.
Maybe Bon Jovi, but
Here's
Bon Jovi are Patriots fans, which has seriously caused me to reconsider my loyalty towards them. Uh,
well, here's my thing, and it's funny because we always end up talking about music on this show, but in my mind, if I'm at a concert and a football game breaks out, I'm not interested in the football game. I'm here for the concert. So when a concert breaks out at a football game, my mindset is not, I'm ready to see this concert because I'm going to hear edited versions of songs. I'm not going to hear really good solos. I'm not going to hear, it's not a concert. It's like, I don't know. Remember the Stars of 45, those
yeah,
little mix songs they used to have? Or Jive Bunny and the Master Mixers, that little thing. That's what it reminds me of. I'm getting a 3-hour concert reduced to snippets of songs that are going to get me interested just long enough for them to change to go to another song. And that's not a concert. I want to be there for 3 hours listening to album cuts. I want to hear all kinds of stuff. I don't, it's like when U2 opened for the Saints in 2006. There was a girl 2 seats from me who was upset that U2 only played for like 10 minutes. I came here to see U2. I'm like, it's a football game. I'm just SpongeBob. that's how my mind works. It's all
You
compartmentalized.
know, we laugh about this, but if you think about it, though, that's just a sign of what the championship game has come to.
Yeah,
It's about the money. It's about what generates capital, and you know, I don't necessarily think that that's such a great thing, but I said this in several forums over the past couple of days. I think that this Super Bowl was really, really good for football at a time
yeah.
when it really, really needed it.
hmm and that's how I would rank this game. I mean, obviously the 2009 Saints Super Bowl against the Colts, which the anniversary is actually tomorrow.
Okay.
It'll be 9 years. But that's obviously my favorite Super Bowl. Will always be my favorite Super Bowl until the Saints play in another one and win another one. But this fits right in with all the rest of the game. And I thoroughly enjoyed last year's ending. It was very enjoyable the way that game ended. But
Yeah.
you know, I have to give the parity part of the league credit because we are getting better Super Bowls because there's so much parity now in the league. You're not getting these horrible games that are over, before the first half. So now you are paying attention to the commercials. Like, gee, I hope the commercials are at least entertaining. That is a welcome change, and I enjoy that. So, but one other thing, and let's go ahead and switch over because we talking all this about this is a sync show. Um, let's talk a little
Drew
bit
was
about.
Drew was there. We were
Yeah, he was there.
represented.
Yeah, he was there. Um, let's talk about some of the other positions. We've been doing this positional analysis. We did linebackers last week. We did defensive line 2 weeks ago. Kind of rushed through that one, but let's talk a little about cornerbacks because, like we said, with Malcolm Butler getting benched for the whole game, that is now the buzz that he is going to be an unrestricted free agent. The Saints were interested in him last year, and of course, we didn't make the deal. Um, the Saints instead drafted the Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, Marshawn Lattimore. We also have to congratulate Offensive Rookie of the Year, Alvin Kamara, um, for the first time in, I'd say, forever, probably since George Rogers. No, I take it back. Ruben Mays won it too. We
Yes.
had Rookies of the Year. Uh,
86, I think.
yes, 86. And it's now been split up into offensive and defensive players instead of just one player winning Rookie of the Year. So this is technically the third time the Saints have had the Rookie of the Year, but it's actually the fourth because they split it in two. So to make a long question even longer, how would you grade the cornerback position?
Well, as a whole, I think that the expectations couldn't be any higher going into the season. And it it took a good 3 to 4 weeks for it to develop. I'm sorry. Um, and going into the season, you expected Lattimore to be a contributor, but I would venture to say that all eyes were on PJ Williams. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to look a lot harder to find PJ after that because he was on the sidelines quite a bit. Uh,
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you're evaluating cornerbacks, all the attention is going to go to Lattimore, justifiably so. Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think that not enough credit, and I know that there's a lot of people that disagree with me on this. I don't think that there has been nearly enough credit given to Ken Crawley, and I'll
Yeah.
tell you why.
I would agree with that.
Uh, Anytime that you have a defensive standout such as Lattimore is, a team that is preparing for you is going to prepare to go away from you. So you got Lattimore over here. That means your star is going to be over here. And that falls in right into the lap of a player like Crawley.
Yeah.
Was he perfect? No, not by any stretch of the imagination. But we're talking about a first round draft pick and also an undrafted free agent in his second year. So I think that Crawley Rip Gadget deserves a ton of recognition, praise, whatever you want to call it, as well. And that's not saying that Lattimore doesn't deserve it, but I think that Crawley does. If I had to give a grade, I would say A minus. And the minus, let me clarify this. Taking into consideration Lattimore, Crawley, but you also have to take into consideration PJ Williams. Golly, I forgot his name. Number 21.
Devontae
Harris.
Harris.
You
Devontae
also,
Adams. Devontae Harris.
You also have to take into consideration those guys. That's where the minus would come in for me. The off-season priorities, you need some depth because the drop-off in quality was very evident. The first game that jumps to mind is the Los Angeles Rams game when we're playing a potential playoff matchup where we could have possibly improved our seeding, and we had to do it without Lattimore, and it showed. We need some depth there for the cornerbacks. Now, will that be Bro? That's going to be a major decision upcoming for this coaching staff. I wouldn't be at all surprised for that to be a resounding no, and for Bro to be expendable now in light of Lattimore. But the MVP, I don't think that's even a question. That's going to be Devontae Harris.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with a lot of the points you said. And one of my things I'd say about PJ Williams, he's clearly a nickelback. He's clearly a guy that is not your starting, can't play on the outside as your starting corner. But people really kind of savaged him. And my take is this. Okay, this is essentially PJ Williams' rookie season. He was hurt all of 2015. He played for about a game and maybe 3 possessions of 2016. So 2017 is the first season where he really was available for all 16 games and played in all 16 games. He made a lot of mistakes, but he also did some good things that had Lattimore and Crawley not played at the levels they played at, and definitely having Lattimore on one side helped Crawley out a lot because, like you said, you think about the Rams game, you think about the Redskins game. With Lattimore out, Crawley was a bit more exposed. He stood up. He played well, but he clearly doesn't have that elite talent. But Crawley is not a bad number 2 corner. So that's what I think really kind of spurs this talk about Malcolm Butler again with the Saints fans, because PJ Williams struggled as the nickel cornerback. Devontae Harris was terrible. He played like an undrafted free agent playing his second season, whereas Crawley played more like somebody you would have drafted highly in the second or third round based on the way he played that season. So Harris struggled. Then after Harris, you really had nothing. You had Sterling Moore, who is, he's a veteran, but he's slow. And you brought in various guys to try and, help out a little bit at corner. But, it really wasn't. You need more depth there. You're right. And I think that's why people want to bring in Malcolm Butler to put him up with Marshawn Lattimore as your 1 and 2 corners, and then some reason they think Crawley can play the slot, which I disagree with. I think if in that kind of scenario, if you were to spend the money and get a Butler to play with Lattimore, when you go to the nickel, Butler slides down to the nickel and Crawley goes to the outside. You would have to do that, kind of like what they were doing with P.J. Williams when you had, Bro. And that's the amazing part. In 2015, Bro was the stud. Bro was the player that some guys were saying, hey, man, extend his contract right now because he's your best cornerback. And look what's happened since then. And now we're talking, you were saying this, now you're talking about maybe Bro's not going to be on the team next year. I think if he gets hurt again, he's gone.
No, yeah.
I think if he can stay healthy through training camp, and let's say if Malcolm Butler comes to the Saints, or they bring in somebody, not just now. I'm just throwing Malcolm Butler out there just because that's the talk. But let's say they bring in a cornerback to compete, that nickel number 2 guy, or just for depth. They're going to throw Bro in the mix, and let's see who's the best guys out there. Maybe it's P.J. Williams gets out. Maybe it's, maybe Devontae Harris, stop laughing, but maybe Devontae Harris makes that step up and plays well and earns a job. I think that's what they want. They want the competition there, they want their worst player to be good enough to play for most teams in the NFL, but really be a good, solid guy for the Saints to fall back on when the injuries come, because the injuries come every year.
Well, the league now, you don't have, looking at it offensively, you don't have a team that's going to have one dominant receiver. Your Megatron, for example. Nowadays you have Julio Jones, and then you have Mohamed Sanu. Which, if you look at it transversely through the Saints' eyes, was a sticking point for us because we had Thomas, but then what? Last year that was Cooks and Thomas, and then Snead and
Snead.
You
had a threesome last year. You didn't 2 years ago. In 2016 you had a threesome. And they removed one, and the other one falls off the face of the earth. So you really had just Michael Thomas. So and that you're right. The future is multiple weapons. Some teams are going to have that go-to guy, but you need. And Sean Payton said this: you need to have your base defense really consist of 3 cornerbacks. You're in that nickel or big nickel formation most of the time. So you're right.
And you're going to have to match those up the same way on defense. The days of having that one cornerback, your Revis Island, and having that suffice to carry you to the next level of success, those days are gone. You've got to stage each level of your defense that way.
Exactly.
Well, our next position is it's kind of a given. At least in terms of the MVP, we're going to, and I gave you this to you last week, so you'd have time to contemplate. We're going to talk about the quarterback position, and obviously there's no competition for most valuable player. It's got to be Breeze. All talk right now centers around what we're going to do with Drew Brees. Are we going to extend him long term and forget about everything else right now, or are we going to sign him for a 2-year contract and draft a quarterback? Let me put it to you this way: tomorrow morning, you walk into Mickey Loomis's office, and you now are the GM for the New Orleans Saints. How do you approach this?
Well, you have to take into consideration, number one, that Breeze is 39, but Breeze just completed 72% of his passes. He doesn't have to carry the offense, but when he does have to step up, he can still play. So my approach is I'm going to try and extend him for 2 years. There's been talk right now of going year to year, and while that's all good, it also puts you in a really tight bind with the salary cap year after year, because you're gonna pay Breeze market value, and a lot of people balk at the term market value because they're like, well, he's 39 years old. He can't. He needs to take less money. This is always this floors me every time I hear this argument. He needs to take less money to help the team win. Well, if buying players got you a championship or got you in a position to win, we wouldn't have been making jokes that we were making earlier about the Redskins' last championship being 1991, because that is the Daniel Snyder approach. Daniel Snyder has broken open the checkbook over and over and over again. The most recent one was Josh Norman. They're no closer to winning now than they were before he bought the team. You just go down the list. You start looking at Albert Hainsworth. He's brought in Super Bowl coaches. He brought back Joe Gibbs. He's done all the things that you think you can do to win in the NFL, and he still can't win. So that's why I just kind of chuckle to myself when people say, well, we're going to, Drew needs to take less money so we can spend it on key free agents so we can win next year. And that's not going to guarantee you any kind of win, because how do you know this guy isn't, the dreaded system player? Or how do you know this guy hasn't been playing for the contract? How do you know this guy it fits with what you want to do both in the locker room and on the field? My thing has always been, if you look at the best free agents the Saints have ever signed, you look at a guy like Joe Horn. He was number 4 receiver in Kansas City. You look at a guy like Leroy Glover. They got him for $100 from the Oakland Raiders when the Raiders cut him. You look at those kind of players. Those were guys. Scott Fujita is another one. Those were guys that the Saints brought in that were ready, that were hungry, that took the next step to be the leader for the team. You compare that to the Jarius Byrds, the Andre Royal is somebody I'm going to talk about. I'm going to do a little profile on the top 10 and top 10 best and the top 10 worst free agent signings. C.J. Spiller, Brandon Browner. You can just go down the list of guys versus a Darren Sharper who was cut because he was too old. And look what he did for us that 1 year. I mean, it's you look at those kind of players and you see how this guy worked out. Now, of course, you can point to a Drew Brees, you can point to a Darren Sproles. Those were guys who did extremely well for us, that were productive for their former team. But those are the rare ones. The more often than not, you get the Albert Hainsworths, you get the Alvin Harper, who went to Tampa Bay and they paid him a ton of money. You get the Andre Rison, who went to the Cleveland Browns. You paid him a ton of money and he stunk. You get those kind of players. Neil O'Donnell, when he went from Pittsburgh to the Jets. You get players who just don't work out because for whatever reason it just doesn't fit. And so my thing is, pay Breeze because you are at a position now, because you went 11-5. You're in a position now to take that next step. Pay Breeze for 2 years. Get some, I hate to use the word second tier, but get those hungry backups or guys that are close to breaking out. Try and find those diamonds in the rough, those guys who are waiting for their opportunity to come up and make a play. And that's what you bring in, and kind of let the other teams go and blow their money on the Jarvis Landrys and that defensive end from the Lions, those people like that,
Ansah.
Ansah, yeah, Trent Williams, I think some people have talked about. You kind of push those guys off to the side and let somebody else spend the money for those guys. You want to find, and here's another good example. You want to find a guy like Gabriel for the Falcons, who fit in perfectly with that team. You want to find, somebody, even Sununu, Sununu was the governor of Massachusetts and was also with George H.W. Bush's administration. Forgive me, John Sununu. Mohammed Sanu. I know the two names, okay? That's all right. I was trying to say Devontae Harris, Devontae Adams kept coming to mind. So that's how my poor little mind works. But anyway, we don't want John Sununu playing for us. But you want to find those kind of guys. You want to find those kind of guys. And that's the key to making have a good season.
Anytime that you have a guy that's coming up on his free agency, and guys like your Ansah, your Malcolm Butler, if these top flight teams, these teams that are maybe trying to transition to that next level, like Detroit, teams that are at that next level, like the Patriots, and they have these guys, there is always a reason that they're willing to let them go. Sometimes that's not that big a deal. 90% of the time, yeah. Look, case in point, Brandon Browner. Seattle cut him loose out of the Legion of Boom. And he skated through a year in New England, and then he got here and true colors were revealed.
My thing is always look at the body of work, the entire body of work.
Yes.
Is this player an ascending player, or is this guy been the kind of guy who goes up and down and his contract year and he's shot way up all of a sudden? If that's the case, red flags, warning. Danger, Will Robinson. This is not the kind of guy you want on your team. You want a guy, if you're going to get a guy like that, you want him to ascend the first year he's with your team. Okay, that's what you want. I'm sorry if I'm boring you. Just kidding.
No.
But So, and as far as drafting another quarterback, look, you're picking 27th. You're not getting Baker Mayfield. To get a guy like Baker Mayfield, you've got to give up a lot to move up. And you're not a team that is in a rebuilding mode right now. And guess what? There's going to be another Baker Mayfield that's going to come along next year in the draft. Not necessarily a guy just like him, but a talented quarterback who come up in the draft. There's talented quarterbacks who come up every year in the draft. If you sign Breeze for 2 years, you've bought yourself a year. Okay? And let's see what happens. Let's see where we go. If Breeze suddenly gets old, a la Peyton Manning, and he stinks, and we now are picking, instead of having a Super Bowl year, we're now picking back in the top 10. We're picking like 11 or 12. Then we can start looking at a quarterback and playing the rookie or getting the transitional guy and doing all those things. But right now, our focus should be on building the team to take it to the next level, not blowing our entire draft load, a la Ricky Williams or something like that, to get that one guy. Okay?
Yeah.
We want to. Let's just wait. It's not going to hurt us to wait. And if a guy falls in the 4th or 5th round that you like, take a flyer on him. But you want to at this point, you want to improve your depth on the offensive and defensive lines, improve your depth in the secondary, and get somebody to help your offense convert those third downs, and I think you're taking that next step. But don't worry about the future. Worry the long-term future. Worry about the immediate future and getting the guys that you need for a 16-game season to get back to the playoffs right now.
I agree. The only way that you're going to get into the market for a Baker Mayfield, a Mason Rudolph, any of those what I consider to be top level guys,
Mm-hmm.
the only way you're going to do that is you're going to trade away your draft, as you alluded to. Maybe not to the extreme of the Ricky Williams deal, but considering that you were one play from being in the NFC Championship game, I think maybe you've got a lineup that could probably get you back there. Bolster that. Also, take into consideration the reality that you were about half a game from not having an offensive lineman. Of course, I realize that Sean Payton, Mickey Loomis, all these guys, they know this, and hopefully Ireland knows it. So I look for them to handle their business. As much as it would do my heart good to see Baker Mayfield in black and gold,
It's just,
alas, it was not meant to be.
right. Not picking 27th. Not picking 27th right now. No,
if Baker Mayfield falls to number 27, there's something terribly wrong. And as you said, danger, Will Robinson, danger, don't, I just, at this point, no, Breeze is not going to last forever. And that's a harsh reality that a lot of people are going to have to come to terms with. But I don't believe that the answer is jumping the gun and doing something rash like trying to trade into the top 5 in this draft just so that you could try to quote unquote draft his replacement. And I think the misconception that a lot of people had when we drafted Garrett Grayson a few years ago was that this was going to be the next next man in the progression, and it was never meant to be that. What you saw was the Saints taking a chance on a later round guy, hoping that it would pay dividends along the lines of a Marcus Colston, a Pierre Thomas, somebody that not a lot of people had heard of. You saw some good stuff there. It was a project. It was never intended on being the next man to take the keys to the door.
He's the kind of guy that they were counting on maybe 2 to 3 years down the line. He's your number 2 guy. He's your guy you felt confident if, let's say, for example, the Saints are making a run and something like what happened to the Eagles happens to the Saints, okay? And Breeze gets knocked out. He would be your equivalent to Nick Foles, I guess. You were hoping that he would be in a position that he could run the offense as you wanted to run the offense, not make the mistakes, and if you do a good game plan, if you think about Luke McCown when he played against the Carolina Panthers in 2015, that kind of guy who could win a couple games for you while your starter is getting healthy again. Okay, that's what they were hoping to get out of Grayson. I think the last year with the rumors that the Saints were really interested in Patrick Mahomes, I can't believe I'm butchering people's names. Mahomes, when they were interested in him, what? I was close?
You was close. Mahomes.
Yeah, Mahomes. Thank you. I said it right off the air. You remember that?
Yes.
Anyway, when they were interested in him and the possibility of taking him before Buffalo made the trade with Kansas City and Kansas City jumped up and grabbed him, was because of this season, okay, this upcoming season. They didn't want to be in a position where they were over the barrel with Drew Brees, and you had to make a decision. Basically, you kind of have to re-sign him because you have nothing behind him. They were going to see. Let's see what happens in 2017, and if 2017 would have been another 7-9 season or worse, then they would have been looking at much like what they were looking at with, what people are looking at in other cities, where okay, maybe it is time to move on from Breeze, and we're going to keep going full rebuild. But we didn't. We won, and we won a lot of games. And thank God we didn't make that pick. Thank God Buffalo made that trade, and Kansas City took him, because we got Marshawn Lattimore, who is a player who's ready to play right now, and helped us get to 11 wins and get into the playoffs. So, yeah, that's kind of how you have to look at when you're making a decision on a quarterback. Unless you need a quarterback, you don't take a quarterback. And right now, the Saints don't need one. A team like the Jets, a team like the Browns, a team like the Broncos, they need a quarterback. So they're going to make the moves to get a quarterback. We don't need one yet. I'd rather be in the Colts position when Peyton Manning left and you had to go draft Andrew Luck in the top one or two players. That's when I want to go get a quarterback. I don't want to get one. I don't want to get one with the idea he's going to sit behind Drew for a couple of years and learn. No, I want to get one when I have to get one.
Not in today's NFL. People don't seem to grasp the reality that in today's NFL, a first-round draft pick is a decade investment that a team is making in a player to contribute towards their franchise winning in the next decade. And I'm not talking about sitting on the bench for 3 or 4 years learning your trade. No, that's not a quick enough return on your investment, because a rookie contract is 4 years.
Or 5 if you're in the first round, which is when you're taking your quarterback in 5 years.
Yeah.
If it's a 4-year contract, it's even worse, because you have to make that decision. That's why Kansas City moved from Alex Smith. Not because Alex Smith had a bad season. He had a great season.
Yeah.
But they've got to play Mahomes now. You can't afford to wait another year, because you want to know by the end, his option year, you want to know whether or not I'm going with this guy, or maybe it is time for us to look at another quarterback again. Okay?
Yeah.
And that's the reality of the modern NFL. The days of I can't think of his name. He was killed. He was a Tennessee Titans quarterback. Big tall guy.
McNair.
Number 9. Thank you, Steve McNair. Remember, Steve McNair sat on the bench for a few years and learned, and then was promoted to the starter. Okay, those days are gone. You don't have that luxury anymore. You've got to throw these guys out there. Look at Goff and look at Wentz, second-year players. Look at Winston with his bizarre W fingers, and Mariota. They had to go out there and play now. That's just a reality of this year. We saw rookies starting. The Bears did Trubisky. The Texans did it by default, but Deshaun Watson got to start. And he really, you saw a lot of potential out of him. How that translates now, he's been injured, and the next year and so forth, we'll see. But that's the reality of the NFL. When you get a rookie quarterback, you're throwing him out there as quickly as you can. There is no sitting behind a starter for a couple of years and learning. You're sitting behind a starter who is your carryover or kind of transitional starter for a few weeks, and then you're turning it over to the rookie. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, we want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. We hope we enlightened you. Hopefully we didn't enrage many. But if we did, that's okay too, because that's what sports is. It's about sharing and exchanging ideas and us telling you guys why ours is right. We want to invite
Modest too.
and when I say ours, I say Alan's that I agree with. We want to
Yeah,
invite everyone
thanks.
to join us for our special 2-hour Donnie Lambert Memorial pre-draft extravaganza palooza, whatever. We'll get together on the name of it between now and then, but it will be April 24th at 7 p.m. We will be starting an hour early because it's an expanded show that night. I've already gotten commitments from several of the guys that joined us last year, and we'll be doing a live first round mock as we did a year ago. I'm sorry, Alan.
Yeah, I'm here. No, I'm sorry. I saw a good tweet, and I just have to share it with you. Apparently, there's people who want to change the term mankind to people kind, and it says people want to change mankind to people kind because people stupid. I just thought that was just too awesome. Anyway, yes, the mock draft show last year was a lot of fun. I'm gonna have to go dig it up and actually write down who we all picked because I don't think we got many right outside of the very first pick overall. But it's fun to see the mindset, especially fan bases representing their respective teams, where they'd like to see these guys go. And I'm really excited about it because it's one last mock, one last thing for fans to argue about, one last thing for me to call my own son a rat bastard. Yeah.
Well, I hope that everyone was okay with the fact that we didn't spend a lot of time on the Malcolm Butler controversy. I think it's inappropriate right now to comment on stories that are developing, such as the impending change in leadership in the evil empire, which maybe we'll get more into that next week. Palpatine is on shaky ground.
Yeah, Snoke may take over now.
Yeah. But like I said, we thank you guys for joining us, and April 24th, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time will be the Donnie Lambert Memorial Pre-Draft Show. Thank you guys so much. Alan, I'm going to turn it over to you for the close, brother.
Hey, as always, we appreciate you guys. We are now officially in the off season. The new league calendar year has started as of the end of the Super Bowl. So now it's time to talk about, I think free agency starts either March 12th or the 22nd, somewhere around those dates. We've got the combine coming up this month. We get to watch guys run around in shorts and T-shirts. So you're going to see all kinds of players shoot up the draft boards now because they had a good combine. Pro days starting. There's a lot going on that we're going to be talking about. And as always, we want you guys to, tweet us or send us a message. What are the kind of things you want us to bring up and mention? What kind of players you want us to debate? I'll be glad to talk about any of that stuff. And I know Sean will too. So in the meantime, you guys have a good week. We shall see you next time on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.
Good night, guys.